Hey, I'm Cameron Bertuzzi.
And I'm Matt. I'm Matt Frad. Continue.
And we are friends, and we're talking about Catholicism versus Protestantism. And well, in this video, actually, we're talking about bias and how we can overcome our bias. Really, how we can have a good conversation. I did an interview with Matt a few months ago at this point, and it's doing remarkably well. And based on that, we decided, let's do some more talks. Let's do some more videos. And I mean, we're good friends. We've sort of become friends over the few months, 6 or so months at this point. And so we've had a good time, and we're planning on having some more good times, but just with you guys. So we're going to have some conversations about Catholicism, about Protestantism, arguments for and against, and we're going to be navigating this. That's what we're doing. And this video is really just to sort of set the scene. We're, like I said, talking about bias, how to have a good conversation, but it's going to be really relaxed, really chill. And so the conversation that you're about to see is, I mean, it's not super serious, but it's going to sort of
Matt Frad pounding whiskey. Then my understanding too, Cameron, is we're going to do monthly discussions, and those monthly discussions will be for our patrons. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's probably important to talk about that too.
Specify. So we can come on here and do these public chats, absolutely. But then you and I are committed to doing these monthly discussions on different things that divide Catholics and Protestants, and kind of getting into it and trying to understand each other.
Yeah, and we're going to pitch this kind of like a debate, but it's not a debate. It's just a discussion, a dialogue between
We call it
people.
A debate because it looks more appealing when you see it on YouTube and you want to click on it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Maybe it will maybe we'll just get super angry. We don't know. I mean, I feel kind of chill.
I'm already angry though. I mean,
I'll just start throwing glasses at the wall and
I'm
whatever
really
gets
angry
those
at your
subscribed.
beard.
Why are you angry at the beard?
It's awful. No.
Wow.
Well, let me talk about the videos, the monthly thing. So what we're doing is we're trying to sort of drum up some support on our respective channels. And the reason why we want to do that, we're actually both in the middle of launching Spanish YouTube channels.
Yep.
So it's really, really cool. But that's the reason why we're doing this, is we want to build some support, but it's also going to be beneficial in a whole lot of other ways too. So if you find, like, if this sounds interesting to you, you want to hear some conversations between Matt and I on different subjects that sort of divide Catholics and Protestants, then definitely check out our Patreon pages. My Patreon is patreon.com/capturingchristianity. His is
patreon.com/MattFrad.
And we've got those linked in the description of the video. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We're going to give you guys more information as we get it, and as we sort of develop and figure out what we're going to talk about. But you'll be aware. You'll know when we decide what we're going to do. So yeah, I mean, and also let me know in the comments. Like, let me know what you guys want us to talk about. If you want us to talk about the Eucharist, if you want us to talk about Mary, whatever. If you guys, we'll talk about anything. And as I mentioned, like, as we're in the conversation today, I'm really excited about this. I'm so excited to have these conversations with Matt. He strikes me as a really, really sincere guy. He really cares about truth. He's also very open and honest about his bias, and I try to be as open as I can. So I'm really looking forward to these conversations. It's going to be a good time. What do you have to add? Is there anything else before we show them our conversation?
That's it. I'm super pumped. I know our last chat did really well, as I've said in our video today. And I think a lot of people it's just really cool to see two people who are disagreeing without being disagreeable. So I look forward to exploring the beliefs of the Catholic Church and what you might believe about those things, and where, we might be able to, I don't know, maybe we'll change our opinions on some things. I'm just really looking forward to the conversations as well.
Hi, welcome to Capturing Christianity and the Matt Frad Show.
No, not the Matt Frad Show.
Also, welcome to Pints with Aquinas.
That's right.
Oh, yes. Pints with Aquinas.
Isn't that a beautiful stein? My gosh.
It is beautiful. There it is. Look at that. Oh, my goodness. This is the most beautiful mug that I've ever seen.
Thank you.
And it is. It makes the coffee better. I don't have any coffee right now, but it's just pure whiskey, just filled with whiskey.
Well, dude, this is so great. It's it's so good to be with you and just to be watching all the videos you're pumping out. Like every one, I'm just like, oh, I can't wait for that. So you're just doing such a great job. And I enjoyed the video recently. Who was it? That English bloke and Rasmussen.
Oh, the English bloke.
Yeah.
Alex O'Connor.
He's on Bias. What a fantastic show. That really made me like that guy.
He was great. I want to have him on a bunch of times. He's absolutely hands down my favorite atheist YouTuber. And he just happens to be the most popular one too. He has 340,000 subscribers. So these other YouTubers are at like the big ones. I'm thinking like the big atheist YouTubers. There's one guy, Genetically Modified Skeptic. He's like, the last I checked, it's like 240,000 subscribers, which is like, it's not peanuts, but it's not 340,000 or however much Alex is at. So I really like him, but it's not because of his subscriber count that I like him so much. He's a smart guy. He's clever, he's smart, and he also just strikes me as a very intellectually honest person in a lot of ways. And the one thing that he's doing right now is this whole... You okay?
Yeah, it's weird having a beard, a Corona beard. I'm not used to drinking with one.
I'm not used to seeing you with the beard.
Does it look all right?
It looks okay. I mean...
It's a very...
it's not for me.
It's a very vulnerable question. Does it look okay? Am I manly enough for you? I've been told... I noticed the other day on a video you were growing a mustache.
No, you did not notice that. No,
oh, okay.
That was you imagining. Maybe you were dreaming that.
That's the 3 acts of the intellect: simple apprehension, judgment, reasoning. My apprehension may have been correct, but I judged incorrectly.
Yeah, no, I may have just I guess my mustache grows a lot thicker than everywhere. Like,
dude, you would look amazing with a mustache.
My dad used to have one, and I tried to grow a mustache like a while ago, and I just hated it.
Yeah.
I didn't like how it looked, first of all, but then it was just so annoying.
I'm kind of getting old and fat, so I figure if I grow a beard, maybe it'll just work for me. I don't know.
Wow. Well, what are we talking about today?
Well, you are a Protestant, and I am a dirty Catholic, and we're friends. And well, we played Dungeons and Dragons once. And we did a little video back and forth about disagreeing with each other, and I noticed today about 77,000 views.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I checked that out just today.
I did not know it was up to 77,000. That's crazy.
But what struck me from the comments was people saying it's so nice that people can disagree without being like jerks, and so that got us to thinking that maybe we should do more of these. Yeah,
just like a conversation about something that Protestants and Catholics disagree about. Just like one thing at a time.
Yeah.
For maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour.
With the caveat that while both of us are very interested and studious in these areas, like neither of us are claiming to be like experts.
Yeah, you're not Trent Horn, and
no, I'm not Trent Horn.
Who's the Protestant on my side?
I don't know. James Wyatt?
I'll say Jerry Walls. Jerry Walls is like a Protestant on my side that yeah. Anyways, he's
kind of what's nice about it is the majority of people aren't Jerry Walls or Trent Horn. They're just like regular people who are trying to figure stuff out, and so maybe we have something to offer there to further along the discussion.
Yeah, no, I think that's important to point out that we're not trying to be like the spokespeople for our positions.
God forbid.
It's basically just you and me having a conversation, and then maybe people will get something out of it. Yeah. Maybe they'll see that. I mean, I don't think that you and I are going to get defensive. It's going to be a very cordial conversation. I mean, if you watch the other little interview that we did, it was great. And so maybe it'll help people.
Yeah. And it's also interesting, because I mean, I think I would like you to become Catholic. Which is like such an awkward thing to say, because it's not really my agenda, because I like you and I'd talk to you anyway, but it's not like it's not like I think Protestantism and Catholicism are two equally valid options and you can choose either and that's okay. So there's both the sense in which like we're both trying to be, I think so, what I know from you, we're both trying to be honest, and even honest about our biases and our fears and, you know, things like that, while at the same time disagreeing with each other on substantial things. And I think that's a difficult path to walk, because usually on one side you've got people shouting at each other and calling each other wrong, and it's very kind of combative. On the other side, it's like, well, who really cares so long as we're good people or we love Jesus? And I think we're trying to kind of go somewhere in the middle where it's like we want to be honest and open and loving and charitable, but at the same time we actually do think truth is attainable, right? That God has revealed himself in Christ and wants us to know him and love him and follow him the way he wants us to. And
yeah, no, all that's great. I also wanted to say that from my perspective, I am still in the process of learning about Catholicism, learning about Protestantism. I'm learning my own position as we're doing all of these conversations, or as we will have these. We haven't had them yet, but I'm really interested in just learning more as we like pick a topic each time. I'm really looking forward to diving into that topic.
Me too.
Reading some more about it. Yeah. And I'm not coming at the, like, to give anyone who's watching a little more background on where I'm coming from. I am completely, I don't know who, this may offend you, it may not. I don't care. I am completely open to being convinced of Roman Catholicism, like completely open to it. If that's what's true, then I want to know that.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful thing to say. One of the things, you know, when I watched that chat between pale English atheist and Rasmussen, I shouldn't be making fun of anyone's looks. I'm sorry.
His name is Alex.
Have a look at this. No, sorry, Alex. Brilliant guy. Awesome chap. Would love to have a chat with him. He seems like a great guy. What I loved about them was just like talking about their own biases. And one of the things they were saying is everybody wants to think of themselves as and be seen as somebody who just wants the truth. Mm-hmm. And it's easy to spot the fact that that's not necessarily true in other people. And it's really difficult to see it in ourselves. And so just these last couple of days, I've been asking myself in sort of preparation for our chat, like, am I really open to like abandoning Catholicism? Right? And as soon as I say that, I have two reflexes. One that says like, well, definitely not, because this is true. And then one that says, yes, because like ultimately I want the truth. But I think the thing in the middle is just like all the details and the fear and the like just the fallout that would come about of me leaving Catholicism. Like if Catholicism isn't true, right, and I've got to abandon that, that would be there would be legitimate things that would be stumbling blocks to that happening. And I'm just trying to be honest here, right? Like,
yeah, you're looking at the consequences of what would happen, and they're serious.
They're serious. Like one would be just like Patreon fallout, right? Like right now I run a somewhat popular Catholic show, and I have people who have said to me that I've helped them come into the Catholic faith and they like the work that I'm doing. So to just like come out and be like, yep, no longer Catholic, you know, that would be a serious, like people would just, my tribe, you know, would turn against me, or if not turn against me, just stop supporting me, and that's valid. And then also just like, you know, my wife and my kids, you know, like we're really Catholic, you know, like what would it look like if I was to start going to like First Baptist Church, and like what would that look like, you know? So it's just so difficult to speak from an unbiased perspective. I think the fact is we just all have our biases, and we just have to do our best to be honest about them. So
yeah, one of the things that I didn't get to say in that conversation was, I think one of the first steps to like overcoming bias is to simply just think about what your biases are. So just like acknowledge them. And I think that as we go about our day, as we're thinking about an argument or whatever we're focused on that day, It doesn't even have, it's not like one thing that we're focused on, but just as we go in and day out, we don't really think about like, what am I biased about today? Or like, how is this affecting me and preventing me from thinking rationally? Like, that's not something that I think we normally do. So if you can, when I say you, I mean, I'm like talking to myself too. If we can think, like, really think hard, like, what is holding me back, or like, what's going on here? Like, what do I have to lose if I were to abandon this belief? What is it? What's going on, like, mentally, psychologically? And so I think that's honestly the first step to being able to assess something sort of objectively as we can. I mean, we're still, even when we get to the point where we can sort of overcome some of our bias, we're never going to get all the way, I don't think. But we can at least start the process and like do what we can to mitigate it in the first place. And the first step is to just think about what your own biases are. And that's not easy. It's not easy to do. Like, I'm trying to paint the picture here that it's not something we normally do. It's not comfortable. It's really discomforting thinking about all the ways that you're irrational. And so, yeah, I've had to give that a lot of thought, because I do a lot of atheistic evangelism, if you want to even call it that. I'm an apologist, and so I'm always making videos about theism and Christianity and all the evidence for God's existence and the truth of Christianity. And so I'm constantly being berated by atheists telling me that I'm just biased. It's a sort of carrots and sticks situation. Well, that's why Christians remain Christians. So I'm constantly being like forced to think about my own bias and ask, actually, like, when someone says, "Oh, you just believe this because you grew up believing this," and so I'll have to, like, usually I'll just brush it off, because like, that's obviously not true, at least not now anymore. But it's over time, once enough people keep saying it, it's caused me to really think about, like, why do I believe this stuff, and why is it that I continue to maintain this belief? And so I've had to really do some honest introspection, and so I can just sort of see that over time. I'm sort of rambling at this point, so feel free to come in at any point.
You're fun.
No, but I think that acknowledging your bias is so important at the very outset. If you've never done that, like, do that. It's going to be very uncomfortable, but
that's
I think
right.
it'll be rewarding.
If it's not uncomfortable, it's probably virtue signaling. In other words, if you're saying, like, I can confront my bias and I just want to follow the truth wherever it leads, like, if you can say that without feeling terribly, like, at least a little bit afraid, there's a chance that's just virtue signaling. Like, it makes you seem
or you're
very
just
objective.
Or you're just being super naive.
Yeah.
And just like not acknowledging the fact that you're a human being and you're flawed.
With limits, with intellectual limits and limits in time. And, I can't research the truth claims of every religion. And
yeah, we can be, here's something else to think about. I mean, one of the things that you just said, what, like, you were saying, oh, am I really open to this? And we're not that way about everything. Like, consider the proposition, there's an even number of stars in the galaxy, in the Milky Way galaxy. Like, that's not something that we're open to the evidence either way. It's not like something like,
I won't dig my heels in if I,
it's that is something that we're just, it's very, very easy to be open to the evidence and be persuaded either way on something like that, because there's nothing at stake. It's just like, who cares if there's an even number of stars in the galaxy? But when it's something that's personal, when it's something that is really like central to your life in so many different ways, then it's there's all of these consequences that sort of factor in.
That's exactly right. I think of that as I try to argue with people who are pro-abortion, and I think I can make a really compelling argument for why you shouldn't be killing unborn humans, And sometimes I'm like, how could you not see this? This just, like, surely it's always wrong for big, strong people to kill little, weak, innocent people. And the unborn are little, weak, innocent people. Therefore, there's never an excuse to kill them. And I'm like, how can you not see this? But just like what you're saying, we have these certain beliefs that are so kind of woven into the fabric of who we think we are that you can't necessarily easily like pluck one of them out and the rest remain. It's like a tapestry that the whole thing will come apart if for me, like if it's not true that the Eucharist is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ under the appearance of bread and wine. Like if I discover that's not true, it's not like I can just abandon that belief and hold the rest of them. Like in Catholicism, it's a tightly knit thing. The whole thing would have to come apart, and that's a scary thing. So, yeah.
Well, let's maybe talk about like what we plan on talking about. I mean, we don't have anything set, right? But you go. We are planning to do some conversations, and there's no like limit. We're not doing like a series of talks on. I don't know. The first thing that came to my mind was just a conversation about the papacy. I think that would be fun and interesting.
Yeah, we could totally do that.
And like I said, this is going to give me a really great opportunity because I think we're going to try to schedule these maybe like once a month. And so in that time, as we have all the other things that we're doing on our channels, it's going to provide us some time, at least me some time, to really get serious about the whole Protestant versus Catholicism debate. And not like by debate, I don't mean like between you and me, but just the arguments for and against. And I'm trying to be as objective as possible. And I want to just emphasize again that we're not claiming to be experts. Like when we address or when we talk about one of these issues, even though we're going to be researching it, I'm sure you're going to be doing your research. I'll be doing my research, but it's still just going to be like two guys having a conversation about something that's really important, and we're going to take it seriously, but we're not claiming to be experts.
Part of me is terrified of this, but there's also a sense in which I can't wait to say to you, I have no idea. Like, I don't know how to respond to that.
I don't know if I'm going to get to that point where I'm just going to have like a knockdown argument.
But I also want to be able to say, I would also like to be able to say to myself, let me try this again. I would like to be able to present the Protestant position better than the Protestant can. Like, I would like to be able to, that would be
I'd like you to be able to do that too.
That would be an interesting debate, right? Where you or I or whoever got together and just argued from the different perspectives. Whereas like I play the Protestant, you play the Catholic. Because I think often what we do is, as a Protestant, many Protestants read Protestants to see why Catholics are wrong. And many Catholics read Catholics to see why Protestants are wrong, as opposed to Catholics actually reading Calvin or Luther or even James White or Zwingli or whoever. Or Protestants being like, I would like to learn more about Catholicism. I hope it's not true. Let me read Jimmy Aiken or Trent Horn or Scott Hahn or these other sort of Catholic apologists. I think, so this will be fun.
Yeah, I mean, and I would love to, as we're going, we still haven't decided what we're going to talk about first, but as we do figure out that, I'm going to be asking you. I'm like, I may not even need to ask you though, because I'm sure that you're just going to go to Trent Horn and he's going to give you all the resources that you need. So I might just skip you and go straight to him.
Well, that's a really good question. Like it's a funny point, but it's also a good point. Like in this day and age of the internet, where there's always somebody who has a response to somebody, it's like, how can someone ever feel certain that they have the true position? Like you could see a Protestant out there feeling like, oh, gee, a little threatened by Matt Fradd's argument. So they go to James White and like, oh, I feel totally comfortable. And then they see a rebuttal video by Trent Horn, like, oh my gosh. And then they find another Protestant who explains why Trent's wrong. And it's like this turtles all the way down sort of thing.
Yeah, I kind of do that though in a lot of ways for some arguments.
Yeah.
And some positions.
I guess at the end of the day, like truth is objective. I think that's true. Well, there's an objective statement. But at the end of the day, like we can only sort of base our sort of opinion on what we think is true. Do you know what I mean? Like if it doesn't convince me, maybe you're the most brilliant person in the world, but I can't buy what I'm not convinced by.
Yeah. Yeah. Your set, what seems right to you is based on your experience and your knowledge set. So it only makes sense to be convinced by what you know. can't be convinced on what you don't know.
Yeah, so no, it'll be good, and I'm glad we're going to do this topic by topic, because what's interesting is like as a Catholic, there's a lot less room to be open-minded. I feel like there's no such. It seems to me like there's not really Protestantism. There's Protestantisms. Like there's a wide variety of Protestants who believe all sorts of things, and it feels like, there's almost like more freedom there. Where it's like, if you talk me out of baptism and regeneration, like I can't actually be a Catholic anymore. You know what I mean? Whereas if I talk you into baptism and regeneration, like you could be of a Lutheran bent or something.
Yeah. So here's something interesting, is that I lean toward a position called annihilationism.
Mm-hmm.
So that is incompatible with Roman Catholicism.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that might make for an interesting discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think, to your point, I think what you're saying is that like within Catholicism, it's like not just one set of beliefs. Like if you prove this wrong, then that's okay. Yeah. But if that is wrong, then you got to throw out the whole thing.
Yeah, like if annihilationism is correct, then Catholicism is false, because Catholicism, claims to be able to like define certain things. Like here is what was meant by this. Like here's what the apostles handed on. Here is the faith. In other words, like there are definitely like boundaries that you can go between. It's not like there's not like necessarily strict things with everything, but like that would be one of them. Like it's kind of like a matter of faith that hell exists and is eternal, and that you can go there. And so if I was to abandon that, I'd have to abandon Catholicism. Hey, just a quick note. The term Roman Catholicism began as a sort of slur by Anglicans after the Protestant Reformation. I don't know if you know this or not. Mm-hmm. And it was sort of Anglicans who were trying to hold to the term Catholic and then would refer to sort of the Papists as Roman Catholics. And you can keep calling me Roman Catholic if you want, I don't mind, but there are many different churches under Rome. I go to a Byzantine Catholic church, and those people at the Byzantine Catholic Church would refer to themselves as Byzantine Catholics. There are Roman Catholics. There are Melkite Catholics. There are Maronite Catholics. There are, different types of Catholics, all of which believe the same thing but have different traditions. The liturgy is celebrated differently and so on. But
I definitely am not using it as a slur.
I know you're not. Yeah, I just thought I'd share that.
Yeah, no. That's good information. I actually didn't know that. The reason why I started to make that distinction, because I was originally saying Catholics, and then someone on my Facebook page pointed out that it's too broad of a term. Like it could refer sort of to the entire Christian church, essentially.
It's fair enough. And I think there's probably a sense in which some Protestants, like the word Catholic comes from two Greek words, which mean according to the whole, or more colloquially, universal. And so I suppose there's a sense in which a Protestant looks at a Catholic and says, actually, no, like you are not that Catholic church that you claim to be. Or if you want to say you are a particular Catholic church. We are also part of the Catholic Church in a different sense. And so maybe that persists for that reason, which I can understand. Yeah,
we're already getting into some of it.
Yep.
Already. This is great.
Okay, let's ask each other some like really honest questions, right? Like here's a question I have for you. So suppose like I talk you into a couple of different doctrines, like a couple of dominoes start to fall, and you start to take a lot more seriously, like the Catholic Church's claims. You start listening to bloody Trent Horn, and your friends get disappointed in you, and you're like, I think I've got to become Catholic. What would your wife do, and what would her parents do? Because I know that your wife's dad is a pastor.
Yeah, he's currently our pastor. So what would she? Is that the question? What would she do?
Yeah. What would that be? What would that be like for your family, for your wife, and then for your in-laws? What would happen? Do you think?
I think it would complicate things quite a bit, and that's like a real nice way of putting it. I don't think it would cause any kind of like rift, because if I come to that type of position, I think that I'd be able to explain the reasons why. So if it ever got to the point where we needed to have a conversation about it, then we'd be able to have one. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. I wouldn't take this decision lightly. Like I'm in this tradition now, so it'd have to be some really good arguments and to sort of take me over there. So I guess what I'm saying is that I don't foresee it being too bad. I think the main issue would be that it would complicate things quite a bit. So like so if I start to attend mass, for example, what does that mean for the kids? Like, do the kids just not go? So I think that would be interesting. But I mean, I know like some friends of ours that we just recently became friends with in our neighborhood. His wife is Protestant and he's Catholic. And so I know people,
is he a practicing Catholic or?
Good question. I'm not sure.
This is one of the things I want to say to my Protestant brethren. If I could say anything, I would just say, I know, like I would want to say, like, recognize that the Catholic Church is bloody huge. You take all the Protestant denominations and Orthodoxy, and I don't think you make up half of the population of Catholicism. So
I think it's about a third.
Okay, so the reason for saying that isn't some sort of triumphalistic look how big we are. The point is, you're going to run into really bad people in the Catholic Church who claim to be Catholic. You know what I mean? Like if you start your own Protestant denomination and there's 5 of you, like it's a lot easier to say, look how great we are. Us 5 are really into this. But if there's millions of you, it gets more difficult. And so I know a lot of Protestants have had like bad experiences with Catholics who, think that it's works that get them to heaven, or never read the Bible, or don't have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, or were horrible or abusive. And, and so so that's why when people say like, oh, I've known Catholics, I'm like, good, but do they believe what the church teaches? Do they love Jesus Christ? Yeah. Do they love his word? Do they pray? Do they, anyway. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. That's a good answer.
Yeah, I didn't prepare any like questions, any like difficult questions for you, so I'll have to think about that. I mean, you already kind of talked about them, like what it would take for you, or kind of like what that would be like.
You know what? I found that when the Protestants I know who become Catholic don't but feel themselves abandoning anything of their Protestantism. It may be some of that, but it feels more like they're embracing something bigger. Right.
You made an analogy when we were together, like a few months ago. Yeah, I felt like I can't remember the exact picture that you painted.
C.S. Lewis said something like, when a Protestant looks at a Catholic, he sees an overrun jungle. When a Catholic looks at a Protestant, he sees a sparse desert. Is that the analogy?
Yep.
Yeah. So like, I think like if a Protestant becomes Catholic, I know Protestants who like, I got Protestant friends who are like, they were raised Protestant and they were like, I love my Protestant background. They taught me to love scripture, to have a personal relationship with Christ, which honestly, a lot of Catholics don't have or are learning about again because of the saints' writings or because of their Protestant friends. Whereas I think like if a Catholic were to become Protestant, he would have to jettison a lot of baggage, It's not coming into something wider. It's having to strip down and entering something maybe narrower. I don't mean narrow in a pejorative sense. I just mean there's less, there's less in a sense.
Yeah, right. I mean, I want to come back to this point of how excited I am to do this because cool. Like I said, I think it's gonna be great to really like narrow in on these topics. That's gonna be good. But I'm also excited to learn like what are the best arguments for Catholicism. Like what are the best? Like, and I've heard Trent Horn's name a bunch, and he's even reached out to me on personally. Yeah. So I'm really excited to see like, I'm really excited. This is gonna be awesome.
Good, and I'm sure you could vouch for many Protestant apologists, but I to vouch for Trent, like Trent is one of the, I won't say cool because he's extraordinarily geeky, but he is a very good person, like a good dad, a good friend, just like honest person. And he's not slippery. He's not like one of these slippery, I don't know.
He's not like Matt Fradd.
He's not like me. He's much more of a stand-up guy. Yeah.
All right. So I have a question. I thought of a question for you. And the question is, What is like the best argument that you've heard personally from somebody? Also, like if you remember who it was that gave you this argument, I want to know their name. Mm-hmm. So what's the best argument for Protestantism that you've heard against Catholicism?
So the best argument for Protestantism, kind of as a whole, would be something like this. And I think you and I may have discussed this in our last talk, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself. But it's something to the effect, I remember a Protestant saying something like this. They're saying, okay, Catholic, I agree with you that Jesus
Byzantine
Christ,
Catholic.
Yeah, I agree with you that Jesus Christ established a church, right? Because the Catholic will often say Jesus Christ didn't establish a multitude of churches. He established a church. And so the Protestant says, I agree. Like, Jesus Christ did establish a church. And that church was like a great ship traveling across the seas of time, right? Saving souls, bringing people aboard it. But over time, this ship began to collect to itself many pagan barnacles. You know, when Christianity was made legal, then you've got all these kind of people who are rushing in, who are opportunists, and so you've got a lot of sort of pagan beliefs coming in as well. And so the pristine biblical purity began to be corrupted somewhat. And so the Protestant would say, so yeah, there've been true Christians throughout church history, but this beautiful church that Christ established is becoming corrupted. And you know, by the 15th and 16th centuries, it was almost going to sink. It was so, filled with all this nonsense. And so thank God that God raised different men like Zwingli and Luther and Calvin. None of them are perfect, and we're not claiming that they are. But they were able to sort of scrape away the pagan barnacles and restore this ship to the sort of biblical purity and that it once had. And so it turns out that Protestants are actually more in line with the early Christians than Catholics are, because Catholics have all this sort of baggage that developed over the ages. So that's sort of an argument I've heard people made for sort of Protestantism and against Catholicism in general. And I think that sounds good.
Do you want me to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, and I'd also like to know if you just think that's rubbish, because I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but that's just
no.
Yeah.
To me, that just sounded like a story. It's just like you're telling the story of how sort of Catholicism came about. So to me, that doesn't strike me as a very good argument.
Because when you say give me an argument for Protestantism, an argument, I mean, Protestantism just means protest. Like a Protestant is a Protestant. So an argument for Protestantism is necessarily an argument against the Catholic Church. And so when you're arguing against the Catholic Church, what are you doing? Are you arguing against like a particular teaching? Are you arguing against corruption? Are you arguing against authority? So
in my mind, I'm thinking of, we talked about this earlier, was like if you can argue against one doctrine, one sort of central doctrine that is very obvious, because within Catholicism, there is some wiggle room. It's not just like everything is sort of spelled out. There is some wiggle room.
Yeah, there's theological differences within between Francis. There's different strands of thought on different things.
Yeah, but something that there is no debate about on one of these theological issues. So if there's like a good argument against one of those,
okay, so that's what you're asking. Okay.
Yeah, that I guess. I mean,
I'm
that's
sorry.
one way
I hope I
to
didn't
interpret.
just waste everybody's time there. Let me think.
No, I mean, I've okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if I can formulate a specific argument against things. Like if we were a particular,
you don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to. I mean, I wasn't even looking for like a whole drawn out thing.
Yeah.
But just like
what's the thing that makes me most nervous? Maybe. Like, is there
maybe so. Let's do that. I think
okay. So like, I think while I could explain indulgences, I feel least comfortable about that. Right.
What
so
do you mean explain? Like the reason?
Like I think I could give
how
you.
It came about.
I think I could teach you like what the Catholic Church's position on indulgences are and what that means. And I think I could make it sound credible, and I think it is credible. But it's the thing I'm least It's not that I'm convinced about it because I accept the whole thing. It's just that this is the thing I feel I have most questions about, and that kind of worries me.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you're asking me, like, what's the thing I feel least, so that would be one thing. The other thing would be whether there was a historical Adam and Eve. So there's these sorts of things that I'm like, how do I now reconcile that with the Catholic Church's view on original sin? And
did you watch any of my
a little bit, I
videos
think,
with Swamidas? Oh my gosh, you've got to watch those.
Could you sum it up? Could you sum up his position for me, or? But no, is that too difficult? Because we could go down a whole rabbit hole here.
We could go down a whole rabbit hole. Well, tell me what the Catholic's position is on Adam and Eve. Were there any people before Adam and Eve, or is that out of the question?
This is such a hot topic. There was an encyclical called Humani Generis, in which the particular pope who wrote this letter said something to the effect of, there does not seem to be a way to reconcile Adam and Eve with, polygenism, or however you pronounce it, an original sin. There doesn't seem to be a way to reconcile that. And because of that, many Catholics have said, there you go, so it's out of the question. Like, polygenism is out of the question.
What is polygenism?
Oh, the idea that there's multiple parents, that there wasn't just an original couple.
Okay.
Right.
Multiple Adam and Eves, or just like a group?
Just like tribes of humans sort of evolving.
Okay.
But the counter to that is that language in that encyclical, there does not seem to be a way to reconcile, is not a sort of definitive declaration. It's so, and since that time, so there has never been a definitive declaration on this, because this is a matter for science, not faith, to kind of figure out.
I'm turning around because I'm looking at my bookshelf to figure out where this book is. But I interviewed a guy, Joshua Swamidas. He's a Christian scientist, and he recently came out with a book called The Genealogical Adam, which he purports to show that contemporary science is completely compatible with a recently created, de novo created Adam and Eve out of the dust.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Completely compatible.
I did an interview with a Dominican friar, absolute brilliant guy on Pints with Aquinas, who tried to show that there was like an Adam who was like mating with a, quasi-human, human-bodied but not human in soul. Anyway, so you asked me like maybe we were trying to get at what I find a little difficult to sort of reconcile. Those are the things I feel a little shaky on. But as far as other things, like Eucharist, baptism, papacy, like I think sola scriptura is false. Like those things I feel very confident about, just personally. Now maybe that confidence will be shaken, but those things just
it's all going to be shaken.
It'll all be shaken. Anyway, man, so this is good. I am really looking forward to this. And I'm so excited, too, that we're taking this one at a time, because often, like, Catholics feel very overwhelmed when they get into arguments with Protestants, because Protestants have a whole host of objections, right, to the things they find weird in Catholicism. So where's Pope in the Bible? And what the heck do you believe about Mary? Don't you worship her? And why do you pray to statues? And the poor Catholic is like sort of a recipient of the shotgun fallacy, and he can't possibly respond. So to take these issues one at a time and to actually be able to reflect upon them is something I'm really looking forward to doing.
Yeah, and it's really just purely... I say that, I was about to say it's purely about truth for me. I know that that's not completely entirely true. I know that I have my own biases and stuff, but it really, like, that's ultimately what I want to try to get at.
Yeah.
That's my desire with this, is to really look into these issues and have a good conversation with you and to learn more about your background. Because, I mean, you have conversations with like some of the smartest Catholics alive all the time, right? Am I wrong?
They're way smarter than me. No, there's a lot of very brilliant Catholics. But I mean, you and I both know that brilliant people have oversights. I would, Dawkins is probably brilliant in his own field.
I mean, one of the smartest Christians alive right now is a guy named Alexander Pruss.
Oh yeah,
and he's Catholic. If you don't know who he is,
no, I'm aware of him.
Yeah. He's a Christian philosopher. He teaches at Waco, or Baylor is in Waco. But anyways, I'm really looking forward to him. So here's just a quick reminder about what's happening. We're going to be doing monthly discussions, Matt and I, on different topics, and these videos will only be available to our patrons. So this isn't going to be a super like public thing. We'll maybe do discussions like this every now and then that are public on our YouTube channels, but these discussions between Matt and I will just be like private things for our patrons. And again, the reason why we're doing this is to build support for our ministries so that we can, like I said at the beginning of this, both of us are starting Spanish YouTube channels so that we can start posting consistent content in Spanish. It's the number 2 language in the world. It's also one of the most underserved communities in apologetics, and so it's super important that they have access to this kind of material. So that's one of the biggest reasons why we're doing this, is to sort of drum up support, but then also have good conversations. And
right. And just to clarify, if someone's watching this right now and they're already a patron of Cameron's, you don't need to become a patron of mine. So in other words, we're going to record these, and my patrons and Cameron patrons, you'll get the same thing. So you don't need to be a patron of both of ours, obviously, to get that. Although Cameron is a patron of mine and I am a patron of Cameron's. Isn't that true, Cameron?
We're co-patrons.
That's right. Basically, it's a waste of money because I think we're pretty much giving each other the same amount every month. We're really just giving Patreon money. Exactly. Yeah. Awesome.
Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So, so if you guys want to watch the videos, sign up on Patreon and support us.
Yeah.
All right. See you later.